Hey, everybody, welcome back to the What Podcast. It's one of the greatest weeks. I don't know, is it second, third, whatever? It's one of the best weeks ever. The week we get the schedule, the actual schedule.
It
Guys,
It's a
it's
great
almost
day.
like the NFL, how they stagger everything and you wait. They do the schedule and the announcements and then this. It's kind of the same way. You're waiting for the next
yeah,
thing to drop, and the schedule was just a handful of days ago, and definitely exciting to see.
It's exciting. It's also kind of disappointing because
Can
now
be.
you look at the conflicts,
that's what I was getting ready to say.
and we'll get into that. Yep.
Let's bring everybody in. I'm Barry, that's Russ, Lord Taco, and that's Brian. This is the What Podcast. This is where we talk about everything Bonnaroo. Bonnaroo, and the schedule comes out, and like you just said, Russ, this is where we it is kind of like it's like March Madness. It's like NFL. This is where you sit down with the grid in front of you and you start planning your week, which
Start dreaming.
you start dreaming, and then you think, oh, there are conflicts. I want to see that, but I can't because I got to go there. And you make your lists and you spread it all out, and then you get on the farm and you throw it all away because it never works out
And
the
you
way.
crumble it up.
Yeah. We all know it. We love it. That's why it's so much fun. Brian, usually, I don't, when was the last time you did the laminated? Have you done that every year?
Oh yeah, for those who don't know, we all had our kind of thing we would, be known for bringing every year to camp, and I would make the laminated schedules. And over the course of the evolution, the way things have gone, that one's kind of been a casualty. I don't do it as much. Plus the phones, and now
Yeah.
being able to keep your phones connected with full charge if you try hard enough. People don't. We don't really need those as much. It was always a fun little addition, but
It was fun
yeah.
because we would hang it from a tent pole and it would be hanging there and you could
Yeah.
check it throughout the day. It was great. So,
And I had it wrong half the time because I pulled
yeah,
from
and
a
then we
bad
made
I was
fun
gonna
of
source.
you
say, was
'cause
it ever
yeah,
correct?
The,
I don't
the
think
ones you
so.
wanted to see, you got wrong.
I have missed a show because my damn laminated schedule was
Your
wrong.
own schedule.
It's kind of a flawed system.
It's all part of the lore. So, all right, we've got a very lengthy and busy show. We've got a lot of little items that I want to get to first. For example, you guys both went to see Flip Turn the other day, and the question for longtime listeners of this show that we want to know is, Russ, did Grandma show up?
I didn't see Grandma there.
Grandma
No.
wasn't there.
Maybe next time. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember
Yeah.
if you
sure
listened
she'll
to
call me.
our interview with Flip Turn, we asked them why they chose to do the Tears for Fears song, and I don't remember which member, but said that their grandmother was a big fan of the song, and
I've never felt so old when I heard that.
yeah, but you invited her to come to call you, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, which is pretty funny. And
But it was it was fun. The Signal here in town in Chattanooga is a really nice venue, and boy, they rock and are a louder band than I expected, which was very nice. I guess somewhat of a surprise for me. I saw them at Moon River, but
Yeah,
it
same.
was just from a tail end, and a festival set is always different than a standalone club
that's
set.
what I was going to ask. How was it
It is.
different?
It seemed bigger. They seemed like they went a little heavier.
Yeah,
and
it
a
was
little
different
louder,
to
like you said.
me in the way that it should be. They were catering to their
That was
fan
great, yeah.
their fan base a little bit more. They didn't play the Tears for Fears song, which I actually was not expecting. I would expect that at a festival set, just like they did.
Right. Yeah, but they did cover Strokes song
Yeah,
at the
they did
end.
cover a Stroke song, which was cool, and then it was a fun time. So
Nice.
thank you to them and management involved for helping us make that happen.
All right, and
Yeah.
then I want to bring it up. I'm excited. My brother and I are going to go see Beat in late October at the Ryman. Russ, I'm gonna guess that's
Wait, is this the King Crimson
Yep.
iteration that is let's see, Adrian Belew is on this, and who was the
Tony
guitarist?
Levin and Steve Vai
Tony
and
Levin
Danny
and Steve
Carey.
Vai, yeah.
Steve Vai.
Yep.
Wow.
Steve Vai, yeah.
And Danny
Okay.
Carey from Tool is going
from
to be
Tool.
doing the
Yeah.
drums. So Tony and Adrian from King Crimson. So very excited.
I want to go see that because I have seen King Crimson 2 or 3 times in various iterations over the years, and so I'm excited that there is a.
Yeah,
And
this
this
is
is also-
certainly more y'all's lane. But if
Oh.
you're saying that Danny Carey and Steve
Yeah.
Vai are there,
Yeah, huh?
Mhm.
mind blown. Wow, that's
Uh-huh.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
a super. That's a super group.
And Robert Fripp is
it is.
actually not only endorsing it, but is sort of helping teach, if that's the right word, Steve Vai how to
It
play the
is.
guitar parts.
How do you?
Yeah,
Who
which
needs
is-
it? Steve Vai needs to be taught something.
Go look up some
From
articles.
Robert Fripp, yeah.
All right. All right.
Go look up some
Yeah,
articles.
he's
It's
given this thing his blessing, and I think he's the one that came up with the name Beat,
That's
which
correct.
is a reference to the I think it's the album that came out in 1981.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
From there,
Steve Vai certainly played different style music than I guess I don't know. I guess it depends how you look at it, but definitely from a little bit of a different musical genre world than King Crimson. But
Yeah, more of a shredder. I mean, he's a
yeah.
shredder, and
could almost argue he overplays that guitar a little bit.
He's typically voted douchiest guitar player ever in a lot of polls, which I think is hilarious. But he's also very good. The other reason I bring that up is because my brother, when he got the tickets, got the paid extra for the Ford VIP room.
ooh,
What do you call that? Extra. You got your own entrance.
Add-on thing.
Yeah, add on. You got food, high end bar, whatever. And I was sitting with a bunch of guys who run venues here, and they were talking about what a great idea it is, and it sort of reminded me about the whole Bonnaroo a la carte stuff, and the fact that this is where we are now. You just don't buy a ticket anymore, right? And walk through the door and get in your seat and sit and watch a show. We now expect extras. And
At least
Customized
the
experience.
options. And if
Right.
you haven't been to the Ryman in half decade, certainly any longer than that, it's a different experience. I mean, the Mother Church itself, the setting there, you walk in, you see a show, that's not different. But the different options that you're speaking to now and the add-ons to the storied building itself is pretty impressive. It is a great place to see a show at any time.
Very excited for multiple reasons. I'm excited to see that
All right.
band and that
Yeah.
show, but
I want to go.
everything else.
I'll be there.
So, yeah, I fully expect to see you there, Russ. I knew I would.
Yeah, yeah.
One way or another. All right, so I wanted to bring all that up. Brian, you had mentioned something. 420 had a little bit of news this week, right?
Yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning because it's such, to me, an unprecedented pivot of what they've done down in, it's at Pullman Farms or Pullman something. Quick Google search and you'll find it. Sweetwater 420 was one of the ones for years. It was at Centennial Park many times. I think it might even been the same place as Shaky Knees before at Central. They've moved it around a few times. And it's a big jam band thing and put on by the Sweetwater 420 Brewing in Atlanta. Always enjoyed it, went 2 or 3 times. And they've had some issues in the last few years, COVID obviously being a big reason and others. And they tried to have a big revamp this year. And Beck and Slightly Stupid were the 2 main headliners. There was a few more in there that are not going to be at this version. But by all indications that I can see that there's not a lot of festival and places that you would normally get a lot of your information have really all the information you're going to find. Apparently things were just not done well at all. And about a month ago, maybe closer to 6 weeks, but not long ago, the lineup hadn't even been announced yet, and it's on April 20th. And so that in itself had people thinking, what are they doing? I mean, they're selling $250 to $300+ tickets on par with many other festivals, a little bit smaller than some of the others, but still a sizable real festival. And so there was just a lot of questions, a lot of fans on the threads wondering what's going on here. Then they announce it, and by all indications, the tickets just were not selling at all. I don't know if it's the unfamiliarity with the new venue. Maybe the headliners didn't grab people. Beck seems like it should. I mean, personally, I think Slightly Stoopid is a pretty stupid band. But that's just me talking. And so all of a sudden, 3 or 4 days ago, they just pivoted. They just, no warning, no, hey, big announcement coming. They dropped the main headliner. The Black Pumas were dropped. Really anything that cost on the higher end. Beck, Slightly Stoopid, the three that jumped in my head immediately. They dropped a lot of that. They went down to a single stage weekend on the 20th and the 21st in Atlanta. And it's now free. It's free with a $10 donation to whatever their charity they've tacked onto it. And I've just never seen anything like it.
Wow.
And so for me on Saturday, Grace Potter, Government Mule, St. Paul and the Broken Bones, there's no reason to go any further for $10.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, holy wow, what's going on here? And then they have Trombone Shorty on Sunday. Again, memory only here. Can't remember anybody else, but still a very nice lineup for an additional $10. Never seen anything like it. And a lot of people are just, oh, they're terrible. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of the jerks on socials and like the tickets didn't sell. Okay, whatever the case may be, rather than pull the plug and just say we're done, they've put together quickly something that might be great or maybe not. Also depending on some other people I've talked to with a little bit of industry connections that wonder, have they shrunk it so much and have so little invested now that they don't really care about lines, concessions, entry, portalettes, all the things that make a festival weekend great. How much are they having to cost cut? That was another angle that I hadn't quite thought about. It's free, right? If you don't like it, leave. Go home. I just find it to be a fascinating pivot that I've never seen before and thought it was at least worth mentioning because at one time it was a jewel of a Southern festival.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know. That is no clue except everything we keep hearing, like I mentioned earlier, just like with the venues, there's a lot going on. Everybody's trying to figure out where we're going. So
yeah, with the new organization, or people who are organizers to the new venue, the insiders that I have, and it's nothing but rumor, and so I'm not gonna say it out loud on this because it's just not vetted, and I don't know, but it kind of disaster is what most people are saying, and to be able to try to throw this together quickly and still have a show and not shut people out of a once beloved event, I just think it's a great try. I mean, it's a no lose situation.
Yeah.
If the other alternative is to cancel, then give it a shot.
Yeah. So that's April 20th in Atlanta.
The year off. All right. Yeah. So here we go. The schedule came out this week. We are not going to spend a lot of time on it this week, for a couple of reasons. One, we have a already lengthy show. We've got a great interview with Patrick Whelan of Soberu. Spent a lot of time talking to him and probably could have spent another hour and a half or 2 hours talking to him. So we're going to dedicate most of that, but we definitely want to touch on the lineup, the schedule as it came out. And I would recommend, if you haven't already, going to the Ruham podcast. Those guys spent a good hour and a half of their own talking about it. You're going to need Google Translator unless you speak 25-year-old hipster lingo, which I don't.
I can decode it usually pretty well.
Oh, I'm half kidding. Those guys are amazing. I mean, I don't know. We did a show, and you can go back, Rush, you'll link to it with those guys where we kind of did a translator, or the vibes, how high the vibes are They dropped a couple of new phrases on me this week that I had to kind of hit the pause button and look up. But
Go
anyway,
to
they do it.
Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, the Urban Dictionary. They do a great job going through it all. But we're going to go through quickly. First impressions. A lot of any conflicts. A lot of conflicts. You guys happy with the schedule? What do you think?
Go ahead, Russ. You start.
I've got a serious conflict, and I guess it's not that serious, but overall it looks pretty good. My biggest conflict is going to be Friday. I'm looking at late night T-Pain against the Mars Volta against Thundercat. Why would they do this to me?
Yeah, they're all lined up at the exact
It's
same
all
time.
against me. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not even any real crossover in that one, is there?
Almost none at all. T-Pain at 12:30 a, Mars Volta at 12:30 a, Thundercat at 12:45 a. So yeah, you're there. Boom, boom, boom. You could do them all, but you're gonna miss. If you're a big fan, I know Mars Volta is one of them that you're.
It's
really,
going to be the Mars Volta. I will miss Thundercat and T-Pain completely.
Yeah,
'cause
so
I'm
you're
not
a
leaving.
single show. You're a single show guy, single voter on this one, huh?
For this one, it is. Yeah.
I
and
understand that.
Thankfully, I've seen T-Pain and Thundercat. I wanted to see him again, but the Mars Volta wins, so that's where I'll be for that show, for that time slot. That was really the only big conflict I had. Everything else, I think I can either work around or bounce between.
Yeah, I don't have any conflicts because it was almost impossible to because the festival doesn't have enough music that I have to see this year. They have just enough each day to make me satisfied, and none of them butt up against each other. I kind of taking this from somebody I saw post, one of my friends on whatever social it was, and it was a funny line, and I don't have it now, but Pretty Lights basically somewhat leading into Guar.
Yeah.
On Thursday night, with that starting at 9, Pretty Lights go until about midnight. Could go later than that, no telling with him. And then Guar set for 1. Now, I don't know how much crossover there's going to be there because Fisher, which we found out on our EDM episode, is also very big in that world, and they're on the other right after Pretty Lights. So that there'll be a lot of crossover there. But Pretty Lights and then some Guar, I don't know I don't know how much more I could do after that. I'd need a long recovery. With Guar going till 2 a.m.
That's interesting. So to me, the schedule, there aren't too many conflicts, not any real ones. I'm like you, Brian. First impressions, I love the way it lays out. There's something for me to do and see pretty much every day, pretty much all day. No bucket list things necessarily, but Thursday lineup is now for real. Not just a discovery as we've always called it. Thursday is where we typically go find the bands we've never heard of. But now I want to see Pretty Lights and I want to see Guar. So there are things on Thursday that are on my definitely. And the Neil Francis comes alive. I'm curious about
the Francis we all agree we like and want to see the most is Thursday late. Also Geese we've talked about, and the Heavy, which we got more than one
right.
Recommendation
that was a Pondo
for
recommendation, yeah, and several others.
They're at a very respectable Thursday time at 8:15, so that's something I'd likely probably try to take a look at.
And our guest mentions Eggy, which is 2:00 on Thursday. I've heard nothing but good things, Michigander, and I'm kind of curious about Say She. So again, my point is Thursday is pretty not loaded, but definitely a lot of stuff I'm interested in.
Yeah, loaded for how Thursday is normally in my mind would be actually the correct word for me.
Right.
And just Pretty Lights on the what. I mean, I know I've said on this the last few weeks, and I'm just kind of repeating myself. That's just such a game changer to me.
100%.
That is like that's the big thing this year that really is the Bonnaroo kind of stamp of here. We're always going to try to keep keep you guessing and keep doing things differently. And I think that's going to be wild. And I'm really excited.
And it
to
makes
see
for a
lot of that.
long week. I mean,
It
we
sure
keep
does.
saying that, but I mean, it really does. To my other point, I'm looking at Sunday, which is typically I look at Sunday and think, okay, the headliner's great. It's Foo Fighters, but what's going to keep me there all day until that starts? And Sunday looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Beaches.
Friday and Sunday are kind of my days that have more spread out through the day. Saturday for me, the Witch stacks up really nice with Brittany, Renee, and Cigarettes After Sex, all in order. I'll be in and out of each one of those, no doubt.
John Baptiste.
On the what? The Teskey brothers surely will sound as good as they've ever sound early in the middle of the day on the what. Now, I would like to couple of these, not that day as much, like on Friday, Gary Clark Jr. afternoon evening set on the Witch. Really would like to see him on the what. I think that that loud blues, bass, rock sound would be great there. But Larkin Poe will start the day there. Dominique Fike, both are worthy of that stage, but you could also put Larkin Poe and Dominique Fike on a tent, and nobody would bat an eye at it.
I agree.
So they have reasons for why they do everything, and I'm not questioning them. Maggie Rogers even.
Very excited.
Would like to see that on the what, but 9:45 on the Witch on a Friday, that'll be a fine place for her to be as well. So
Yeah, right after Krungbin.
and if you want both mics, they're both on Saturday. That early and this a little bit later on. So if you're looking for Mike and then Mike period, Mike dot.
Yeah. Mike,
You get both
Mike
those
with
on
no
Saturday.
period right before Umdu Mokhtar.
Exactly. On that tent on Friday. And for me, go to jump to Sunday quickly. I'm surprised to see Milky Chance get a what stage again. They were there in 17 on the what, and it was awesome. I had just heard of them, brand new to me, and I loved it. And it feels like their trajectory hit an apex a long time ago and has since fallen from that. My thought for sure would be a tent for them this year, and they're on the what again. So good for them, and it'll be great. I'm just a little surprised they're there again. And then after that will be Carly Rae Jepsen. I mean, if you don't think I'm not going to be hanging out at the what to at least hear Call Me Maybe. Call me a trendy poser just for wanting to see that. Sorry, that's what I am then, because I've got to hear that on the what stage on Sunday.
Russ, any other thoughts? Yeah.
No, I'm good.
It lays out very well for me, not just because of the acts that I want to see, but I've also, and I haven't spent a lot of time, and we'll do this later, the reality. And we've all done it enough that you know what I'm talking about, where you're going to sit down and you're going to put check marks on the bands you want to see, and then you're going to look at it again. And then you're going to sit down and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to have to walk from this place to that place, and it's going to be 2:00 in the afternoon. And I've already, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. You already know you're not going to make some of these.
Yeah. And I've already jumped to that a little bit with this one, and it lays out pretty well. Like Saturday, there's some good camp time built in there. Friday, the same. There's a lot of topics that I want to talk about that we'll get into later. Like, some people have talked about it doesn't go as late. Some of the schedule doesn't go as late.
I've seen that chatter.
Right.
I've seen that chatter.
We'll get into that. There's plenty of time, and I think we'll get into that, and maybe we can get some people on to talk about why. Is it a staffing thing? Is it a scheduling? Is it a band thing? I don't know. But that'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, Saturday I agree is a little bit of a just kind of hang out and check out the vendors and check out, do a lot of people watching.
Exactly.
Just a lot of just meandering and that's as much fun sometimes as a show.
Absolutely.
So Saturday is going to be a good day for rest. And Sunday, I generally leave on Sunday, but the beaches are early. See, like Green Sky Bluegrass, and now I'm just talking about placements, is on the Witch at 2:30, and the beaches are on this tent at 2:30. The beaches just won Best New Artist or whatever. They're one of the top artists for the Juno Awards in Canada just the other day. So their trajectory is very, very high. Green Sky Bluegrass is, they plateaued out at what they are. They are what they are, and they're great.
Yeah.
But you also could put Green Sky Bluegrass on any tent on any time you wanted. I would have loved to have seen, like, hey, beaches, you guys think you're hot? Do you think this is hitting like you think? Let's throw you over here on the Witch early, which happens all the time. I mean, giving a small band, kind of throw them a bone, and we're going to throw you in a bigger spot than maybe you even thought you'd be. I would have loved to have seen that switch. That's just me with my own preferences.
I don't disagree, except I can see sitting on a blanket or something on the which field with Green Sky
and just
at
chilling.
2:00 on Sunday
and just chilling,
getting ready for what it's coming. So I'm good with that one.
I mean, it's not a wrong answer.
Right.
I don't mean that. I just mean they are the kind of band who, they're a festival band.
Yeah.
Is what they do. They will play. My guess is they're not like, we're not playing unless we're on,
Right.
They'll play anything.
Yeah,
they played Moon River. They've been here.
No, I get what you're.
They play our Three Sisters Music Festival. I mean, they are a working festival band. It will be great, and it will be as chill as it needs to be to get a day started. Those tents,
That's the other thing. Yeah,
it's difficult for me.
There's no sitting in those tents. It's
you got to really get in there, and if it's a hot, sunny day, you're fighting with people who just want to be in the shade. Sometimes that can take away
the best thing, and we haven't really talked about it. The best thing Bonnaroo's done, one of the things, is add those big ass fans in those tents. That's a game changer.
And the screens are back, y'all say, right?
Screens will be back.
We talked about that here.
Brad
that was
said
a
screens will be back, and the big ass fans.
Massive omission from last year. So, but yeah, beaches. I'll be there for the entire time, spending some time on the on Sunday, and then for me, sorry EDM fans, Fred again. I'll be at home. If we're streaming on YouTube, I'll be watching. But Isabel on the Witch stage to close that stage out for the whole festival. He'll be the last one on the Witch.
It's a good one.
I mean, you want to talk about swaying to that shit. I mean, that's just keep it simple, man, which is what Isabel generally does. It's perfect. Perfect. Good. For me, it's perfect.
All right. So like I said, we'll dig into the schedule a little bit more. We've got an interview right now with Patrick Whalen, one of the co-founders of Soberoo, which I was surprised to learn started when the festival started. I don't know if you knew that, Brian. I thought it was about a decade old, but
no, I knew it was early. I wasn't for sure it was day one, and then I didn't know at all because we had only had email correspondence that his journey and all this started post Jerry Garcia. And that was 7 years before Bonnaroo started, and a lot was building in the festival circuit at that time. Fish was beginning to do their big shows, and the Further Festival and all those things. So that was interesting to know more about. That it wasn't even a Bonnaroo idea. That's just like so many other things that might not have anything to do with festivals. Ideas are born at Bonnaroo, even if it's just something from your regular life that has nothing to do. Because sometimes all you got to do is sit around and you have to talk to your friends for an hour and a half because it's too hot to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So you better come up with something to talk about. And oftentimes some really great ideas come out of those gatherings.
I love this story he tells about how it became sort of official. How what was her name, Chris? Somebody from the festival rides up on a golf cart and says, "What are you doing?"
and then before he knows it, help me remember the name, Rick.
Rick Farman.
Rick Farman. I mean,
within
you got him giving you. You got him giving you a call. This is back early on. This is the guy. Yeah. If that Live Nation had a guy who gave you a ring or sent you a text,
Yeah.
Back then, this was that guy.
Yeah, he's the founder, co-founder.
And imagine being a couple years into something you're just doing because you think it's a good idea, and then
thought he was in trouble.
Yeah, like whoa, we're gonna have to see. Yeah, he said cease and desist.
Thought he was in trouble.
He was waiting for a letter in the mail, and it was like, no. How can we incorporate you more?
How can
and
we
how
help,
cool is
how
that?
can we help you do what you're doing? So, I really, really enjoyed this interview, and I hope everybody else does. It's long, but it's worth it. All right, so here we go. We've got a special guest, as we like to do every now and then on the What Podcast. We've got Patrick Whalen with us. Patrick is a co-founder, correct? Is that right, or founder?
I'd be founder of Soberoo, co-founder of the nonprofit.
Okay. I don't want to leave anybody out of Soberoo. This is a topic, Russ, you and I think even Brian, I don't remember if you joined us at the end of last year, we talked about it, but it was one of those sort of aha moments where we noted, I know Russ, you and I did, that I think we had one of our campmates walk by and say, there's a lot of non-drinking people this year at Bonnaroo.
Yeah, Barry, I think for the first time at Camp Nut Butter, you and I were in the minority as far as drinking.
100%.
Right?
Well, if I was there, then I wasn't joined in with you at that time anyway.
You were there.
As far as
you were there. You're definitely part of the conversation, which is why we're doing this. And but also our other campmates who we're going to talk to, I think, in a week, the Veland family. But it wasn't just you guys. It was it was notable. So that's one part of it. But also, Soberoo has been around, a decade? Is that right, Patrick?
Well, I've been to every Bonnaroo. So we had a table with the first Bonnaroo just organically. We just took over a corner of a coffee shop right on one of the main drags that goes to the right of the witch stage. And that coffee shop operator wasn't super thrilled we were there, but there was about 40 of us that came to see, the dead guys, Panic Fish, and we were all on the internet doing our own thing with those bands. And because they were all at Bonnaroo, we all showed up together and we just hung out together. We wanted to see the music, but we also wanted to fellowship together. We've done that at the corner for 3 or 4 years until there was an invitation to, take it to a different level. But pretty much been there every year doing this thing.
All right. There's got a lot that we're going to unpack in this conversation, and I'm just going to say a few things and then kind of try to get out of the way. But the reason this is important is because especially Bonnaroo has this image of being this. I mean, I can't tell you how many people ask me, so you just go up there and just get drunk and get high and spend your whole week stoned, drunk, whatever, and for a week, and maybe some people do, but in my case, I'm like, no, I don't do any of that because the last thing I want to be is hungover in a porta potty on the farm.
Or potentially sick in any way, or
Correct.
something that anything that could really derail your time.
But that is the image, right? I mean, let's just go ahead and put it out there. That is the image. So it's important for this festival in particular that we have something called Soberoo. That's a name that's there on purpose. But it's more than that. You hit on it. You want to see the music. You want to remember the music. You want to see the bands. You want to have the same, experience that everyone else does, but you want to do it a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and ask, and then I know Brian has got a bunch of questions, and I'm sure Russ does as well, but explain Soberoo, explain this. You don't just do it at this festival, right? It's a national type of thing. So explain what you guys do.
So we're a fan-facing public installation in the middle of Planet Roo now. They've moved us a couple of times, but at that public-facing installation, we're just interacting with fans that walk by, and we explain what we are, which is really just a group of fans that choose to come to Bonnaroo without using drugs or alcohol. We're not affiliated with the festival, any bands in particular. We're not affiliated with any 12-step recovery program. We want to make that clear. We're not there to promote anything. We're just providing a safe space. It's a harbor for people that are there choosing not to drink or use. Some are straight edge. Most are in recovery from addiction or alcoholism, but we've had expectant mothers. We've had designated drivers at certain events, people that pop in that are just tired of their friends that have had too much. The nice thing is we've got seats and we've got shade or a dry space if they want to come in and hang out. So we're not just keeping ourselves as a little area off to the side. We open it up as a lounge for people to come in, and then we'll have recovery style meetings, 4 a day at Bonnaroo at noon, 3, 6, and at midnight. And it has grown at Bonnaroo. We also have a campground out in group camping, and we have a tent out there, and we'll have a sunrise meeting. So that makes a 5th meeting that we manage. And we have a large 40 by 40 space that they give us, which is over by where the cinema used to be. I think that's called the Who stage now, but it's over in that far corner back behind the fence. And they let us have access to take people back there from a, kind of an anonymity standpoint. So the idea is just support for people that come. If 10% of the public population are in recovery, then 10% of 60,000 people are maybe at that festival that are also, in recovery or affected by somebody whose addiction or alcoholism has, taken them to another fellowship that they want to, borrow time with us.
Well, Patrick, take me back to the beginning since you've been there since then. That's a good place to start, the beginning. You said from the jump, this is what you were doing. Just to pry personally a little bit, had you had life experiences that led you to believe that this was important going into a bizarre new concept like Bonnaroo in 2002? How did that launch that quickly that back then 24 or 22 years ago?
I'll take a step even back before Bonnaroo time. Me and a couple of other fellows started this sober group that follows around widespread panic called the Gateway. And that was very organic. That was similar to the Wharf Rats that followed around the Grateful Dead. I got into recovery back in 97. After 6 months, I thought my life was over. I thought my life was over when Jerry Garcia died, and then I spiraled for several years into bad addiction and alcoholism. Got into recovery, and then in the summer of 98, I'm going to Telluride Bluegrass stuff. So it was 25th anniversary, and I went out there without any support, but I went out there with some other friends that I'd had, that used and drank and smoked and did all that stuff. And we had a good time, but I went to a meeting in town that day, and I met some people that I'm still friends with to this very day. Just happened to run into folks that are in the industry or major fans that are always on the road touring with people. So I, sort of lucked into that little group of people. Time went by, following bands, still wanted to go see live music. Bonnaroo gets announced, and we all decide we're going to go. And I live in Louisville. I'm 3-hour drive away. It's easy for me to get there. And we just showed up. We started to kind of, how do you find each other? We found each other, and we organized loosely. Over the course of going back 3-4 years, it was probably 2026. We were sitting under a tree, on the only tree maybe in Centeroo that we could find, and we had a little meeting. And if you've ever seen one, you know what it looks like. And Chris Crowell drove up on her little golf cart. She was director of operations in the field at the time, and she was like, what are y'all doing? I was like, oh my God, we are in trouble over here. I told her, I said, this is what we're doing. She goes, okay. She goes, here's my card. I want you to call me next week. And
Wow.
so I got on a call with her, and she said, so I want to get you on another call with some other people. I was thinking, are there going to be lawyers on this call? Is this like a cease and desist? Don't come back to our festival.
You're messing up the cell job here, man.
Your faces are on a wall somewhere, right?
Jack Daniels is over here not looking very proud at what you're doing. So I did not know what to expect, but Rick Farming was on the call.
Nice.
Yeah,
gentleman-
I know that name.
Yeah.
A gentleman named John DeRowan was on that call, and he was the head of the mounted police, the horseback mounted police. He was from Texas, but he was Long
Just
time in
real quick
recovery.
for people listening, Rick Farman is one of the co-founders. He's with Superfly, so yeah, that's a
Mm-hmm.
big deal. I just want to make
It
sure everybody
was,
listening knows that.
yeah, I got on the call and I was just like, oh, what's going on here? And then a lady who was president of Music Cares was on the call, and then Chris, who put it all together. And they asked similar questions to what you just asked, Brian. But I told him what we were doing, and Rick said, "How many people do you think?" And I said, I bet you there's been 100 people come by our space and hang out with us that are in recovery. And I think he said something along the line. So you're helping me sell 100 tickets every year to my festival? And I said, Rick,
There
yes,
you
I
go.
am. And he said, well, what
Mm-hmm.
can we do to help you out?
Nice.
And
That is real. Yeah, that is super cool to hear, because to Barry kind of led with is the perception that everybody just goes to Bonnaroo to get all effed up. At first, it's true. That was pretty true. That was pretty true in 2 and 3 and 4. And after the state patrol started to crack down very hard in those early years, as you're on your way, they were going to leave you alone once you got to Bonnaroo. It was this magical place where police didn't exist, but they existed everywhere else,
Right.
and they were going to get you if they could. So the thought process, I was 22 the very first year, so a child. So the new strategy was, you don't bring your drugs, you get them when you get to Bonnaroo. You let everybody else do the heavy lifting, and you would walk down the unofficial official shakedown street, and you would buy, name it. I'm not going crazy in the gutter here, but what you needed, you could find. That's not a thing anymore, and it hasn't been for a while. Yeah, sure, somebody's got something somewhere, but not the way it used to be. I wonder, maybe you have a feeling on this. Did they want to maybe try to keep that, maybe even if it wasn't reality to everybody, the perception? Do you feel like that was something they maybe were wanting to get away from, or did they just see a good organization that they thought this can also bring us sales and notoriety in that world? What do you think to that?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think they certainly knew they'd get some good publicity if they ever wanted to point somebody to interview somebody at our booth. And then here comes Fox News affiliate from Nashville. They're coming by and they want to talk to you about what. And so that would happen. But also, they're building a city. Every festival has a city. You have to have ways to go to the bathroom, ways to feed people, ways to keep them hydrated, medical staff. And if you're doing a city, you've got people that are going to need, the services that we were providing. So I think they just wanted naturally to incorporate that. There's a lot of other nonprofits doing good work at Planet Roo. They've been there for long stretches of time. And they, why would this not be naturally incorporated into one of those, into that section?
Yeah, good for Chris, right? That's the one who wrote up. I mean, we talk about that a lot. This is the kind of thing that I think Bonnaroo has done very well. Pay attention, see an opportunity for something, and how can we help and make it better?
One step ahead of trends,
Yeah,
or at least lockstep with trends. And while at that time, I'm not going to even begin to pretend that going to shows sober was a trend. It wasn't.
No,
it was foreign as all foreign subjects could be. We can maybe get to this. These days, that's different.
Yeah.
And so I think leaning into that early just solidifies that Bonnaroo stays ahead of the curve.
Patrick, my first memory, I went that Thursday in 2002, and I know the tree you're talking about, and I saw a group sitting in a circle under that tree. And my memory is they were passing around an inflatable bong, which I had never seen before, and thinking, this is a little different place. So,
I still haven't seen one of those.
I know, right? You blew. It was like two pieces, and anyway, it was the coolest thing. But what a juxtaposition, right? And Brian, I'm going to ask you, and Brian has been very open and willing to talk about his sobriety. It's you're what, couple of weeks past a year now. Congratulations, first of all.
Yeah, it's around 400 days almost now.
Yeah.
So it's I don't even count anymore. That's the beauty of this process is when you get to a point where you're not like it's 132, it's 133. Then you really start to feel like I don't want to say we or that it's a very personalized program and situation, but that's when I really felt like I can do this. I don't even think about it anymore.
So both of you are the perfect people, in my opinion, to ask this question as an outsider, if that's the right word, because I still drink way more than I should. But I've heard you talk about it, Brian, and I think I heard you mention it a little bit, Patrick. And if not, I'm sure it ran through your brain. This idea of I won't be able to enjoy this music or this festival, or I'm going to have to change my lifestyle 100% to enjoy this kind of thing.
No, it was an existential crisis deep
Right.
inside my soul, going into this whole, change my life kind of decision, and it was what do I do now?
Yeah, my identity was based around using. There was.
It's such a common story, and that's why
Yeah.
it's a great story to tell, no matter how many times from different perspectives. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off either, but I just identified with it. It was like all self-esteem was based around how much could I get and how much could I use and how fun could I seem to be having. And I just what they did a DVD of the first Bonnaroo, and they got a video of me in the trailer, like early, spinning with like a white tank top with my cowboy hat on.
I have that DVD right around here somewhere.
And that's just like so. And then I think I had yellow. You'll see these yellow stickers on us typically that say one show at a time. We'll have those at our table. And so when I'm out in the field and I'm out in the campground and I see one of our people with it on their water bottle or on their backpack or on their chest, like I'm not alone. There's one of my people. And so that's sort of like our little, from across the field, I can see. And I noticed that on that DVD. I was like, oh, that pot, that was me. Just doing
That's
a little
cool. And
spin.
then for those that
That's
don't
cool.
know, the one show at a time would be a play on the one day at a time and just for today. That's some of the kind of verbiage and during different kinds of treatment you might be going through. And so that is cool to be able to have something where you can kind of, if nothing else, just a nod. Yeah,
but
I see you.
If I can, let me just double emphasize, you were following the Grateful Dead and Fish, right? And then Brian, who I know, but I mean, you've been to every Bonnaroo. So if we're going to
And I was a big Panic follower for a while.
So if we're going to talk cliche, right? I mean, if you're going to talk about,
well, I'm the walking cliche back there.
if we're going to talk about bands and events and whatever, you guys are it, right? I mean, you weren't
And
getting,
those bands are it.
That's my
and
point.
That scene is
That's
it.
my
And
point.
yeah. That's I see where you're going there. And yeah, it's not like we're saying let's not get high before the Three Doors Down
Right,
show
yeah.
or the the Nickelback show or whatever would have been. I'm trying to go back to 2005 or so.
Exactly.
But that's certainly a problem there too. I'm not meaning to even dismiss that because it certainly is. But this is a
culture.
Exactly, perfectly. Thank you, Barry. A culture in which that is a thing, and it always will be. And I'm not even necessarily saying that's bad. Drinking and doing some recreational drugs safely as an adult is a perfectly fine thing to do. It's just a lot of us can't do it all the time, or even much of the time, without doing it too much. And to see organizations like this make that. Put that out there in the open and talk about it is great. How long though, Patrick, would you say did it feel to you outside of talking to organizers, because obviously that's a big deal to you internally and like, wow, okay, that's cool. But I mean, at the festival, it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When do you feel like you're actually getting the message, you're doing the work that you're starting to realize you want to do. When does it start to feel like you're getting somewhere with it? Because if I got to imagine, at first it felt like nobody's going to pay attention to this. That would be my thought anyway, but I'm the natural cynic. What do you say to that?
So there hasn't been a festival that I have been to, whether it's Bonnaroo or any of the other 35 that we do, that I haven't sat at the table and had an experience with someone that had never met us, they did not know we existed, and then popped in. And in some instances, we're like, I can't stop. I use too much. I had a terrible night last night, or they brought their friend over who had a terrible experience to talk with us, and then they are teary eyed, and we talk. We go back in the back, and we just have a few minutes with them somewhere outside where it's quiet, and try to get them to just come back down to earth and go experience the rest of the week. But there was a weekend. There was a guy that ran the stage over in Planet Rue, or was one of the helpers over at that the stage over in Planet Rue where they have the little kids activities, and he came over and visited us maybe 2006. And then in 2007, we were setting up. We were getting there. We always got there Wednesday morning, and now that's way too late. We got to start getting there on Monday, I guess. But we get there Wednesday morning. We're inside. We're setting up inside the festival, and he's already inside. And he came running across the field when we showed up, and he did like a knee slide into the tables, and he was just like, "You all are back. I'm so happy to see you. I just celebrated 1 year." He had met us last year, and
That's cool.
Impacts like that it makes all of the. You've been to Bonnaroo, it's like 5-6 days of living in outdoor environment in the middle of Tennessee in the middle of June. It could be anything from monsoon to like melting hot to really nice weather, and it could be exhausting. And then here comes this gift just sliding into us on Wednesday, and we're just like, we just take a breath. You're just like, I don't care what I have to deal with, this guy right here made
Nice.
every bit of energy we've put forward
Made it
worthwhile for
worth
the
it.
rest of the week.
Yeah, and the success stories really resonate throughout people like us, Patrick, that are or well, I'll speak for me anyway, especially being pretty new to it. The success stories make me feel really good, and that gives me motivation for just anything really. So I can imagine that. When did you start to do this outside of Bonnaroo? So you're seeing it successful. You've done some late '90s stuff post Garcia. I'd imagine a few Dead Incarnations, some Further maybe. You mentioned some others. When did you decide, or was the decision just kind of organically happen? Let's do this outside of just this festival.
All of it really has been organic.
So there wasn't a big board, and you didn't get together and have like shareholders meetings or anything like that.
Not until about 2012, but the
Hey.
first was Superfly did a festival in Vegas called Vegoose Halloween.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Chris said, "Hey, we're going to do this year. Are you? Can you? Will you?" And I'm like, yeah, I'll be happy to do it." It's like, yeah, because you look back at those lineups, it's just like, holy cow, it's
They
just
were
like,
all great.
yeah, at the Super Bowl or Silver Bowl, whatever, not the Super Bowl, but the Silver Bowl in Las Vegas. It's like a really
Yeah,
cool
where
little
Nevada,
venue.
one of the university football teams plays.
Yeah, and it's just outside in the parking lot and inside the stadium at 2 stages, and really pretty fun. It lasted a couple of years, but that was the first, year of doing 2 festivals. There was a festival in Miami. Promoter, his last name is Langer. They called it Langerado.
Yep.
Ran for several years, and we were down there. Maybe I'm going to say that 5-year run for them until that festival just closed its doors and went on a different direction. And then in 2012 is sort of where the next step for us really kind of took hold. I can go into that, but yeah, that was really growth for us between like 2007 and 2012.
I want to get it back to the mission, but you raise a point. Talk about the organization. What I think Brian was kind of half joking about the board, but you said 2012. I'm guessing there is. So what is the organization? How does it look? what all do you guys do? How many people? All that kind of stuff.
So around 2012, it got to be we were pretty serious, and the festivals were pretty serious about it, and a lot of concern. I mean, Bonnaroo, there's news, somebody passed away in the campground, and you hear about it. Somebody ran out on the highway and got hit by, so and so's bus, and those things happen. It's just every festival. It's not unique to any one festival, but we would have people that would literally come up to our booth and thought we were like a detox unit, and they would say, "Hey, can you watch my friend? He's had too much to drink." And naivety, we're like, sure, if he wants to lay down, we've got room, it's in the shade, we got box fans because we got power, and so let him lay down back there. And the festival's like leery of stuff like that. At some point, they're like, what if he doesn't wake up?
Yeah, that's like I see the legalities were already bouncing in my head as you said
liability,
that.
who's liable for
He's
what?
in your tent, and there's going to be somebody that wants to know who was watching my son or who was watching my daughter, and
Yeah.
so that like it's got to be serious. So they recommended some people. There was a guy that had joined our forces that had an idea along what we were already doing for about 10 years. And I was talking before we jumped on here. Sean helped really create a nonprofit, a 501c3 that had a board of directors. We got insurance on the directors and operators and on every volunteer that we bring in. And we're putting a COI together for every festival as well. There are other insured, and we have to do these things. And so 2012 was the growth for us. The festival recommended a few people. Sean had some connections to a few folks that went on the board. And if we wanted any help or direction or connections, ask some of these folks, because they can help you with pretty much anything you'd want done or any place you'd like to grow into. So the 501c's launched, and we naturally through that board had connections into other promoters outside Superfly, Live Nation, C3 Presents, and now they're all kind of under one umbrella anyway. But Insomniac was another one that did all the EDMs. It just grew really sort of like organically, but now we've got an organization. We meet once a year. We go over, the funds, how much do we take in, and we're taking in funds in $1 donations at a time at the table. I mean, that's it. In some instances, I've had people say, "Hey, I'm going to buy like a tour manager will reach out to me who's in recovery, say, I want to buy my artist a Christmas gift this year, but the gift they says just make a donation to a charity. We want to make the donation to your charity." And so those little donations come in here and there, but we run on a pretty tight shoestring budget. Nobody gets paid. Everything we do is free and fun. And
What do they cover? They cover like pamphlets, tickets, travel. I mean, what does the funding cover?
yeah, so it's covering our insurance. It's covering the promotional stuff we have on the table. So pamphlets, the stickers that we bring out that will say things like, "You don't need dope to dance. This is your brain on hugs." And people flock to the stickers. And, if we need to buy new box fans, if we need to buy things that decorate and travel, that ship around the country to decorate the 30 or 35 events that we do every year. The cost of any of our board members travel into, if we need hotel rooms, supplementing our volunteers' gas money, and trying to really take care of all expenses if it's at all possible. At Bonnaroo, we don't get hotels. We all camp. But can we pay for people's food? Can we pay for their breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Can we buy those meals? And we want to do a lot more stuff like that.
Are you set up around the country like you have regional people, or do you travel to Seattle type of thing, or do you cross country, or do you have some people in Seattle? How does that work?
Well, that's another great question. It's always been the challenge. So we actually do a country music festival at the Gorge called Watershed. And so I go through my Rolodex, okay, I can't go to Seattle every year. It's also the same weekend as another festival. A lot of that crossover takes place. We've got to budget our time and our space. I've got a good group of people on the board in the West Coast that are younger music fans that are part of the Sean's son and Sean's son's friend who are really connected out there. That are active, that say, "Hey, we want to show up at the first year. We are invited to this event. We're looking for sustainable festivals, not one off that may or may not, sustain itself, larger by bigger promoters." And then find the fans that come to our meetings and talk to them over the 3 days or the 4 days that we're interacting with them. and you're local, would you want to take this over for us next year? And then I do all the advances. I get into the Lynn portal and I take care of all the credentialing and the tents and the power and the tables and the chairs and all the advances. And I make you the lead and you're the point of contact. And I just get you connected to the point of contact at the festival. And then now it runs itself. And I don't have to go back out to Seattle to do that every year.
It does sound like you've got a pretty good running machine here. After all these years, though, you still feel like it hasn't plateaued or taken a step back organizationally. It still feels like the mission is still strong. I mean, I know it is within your heart and within most people involved, but like from a real, let's say we're running a business, a nonprofit business here, you really feel like it sounds like it feels like it's still doing the work you wanted and more, and it's fulfilling to this point still. Is
And
that
let me
fair and
piggyback
accurate?
let me piggyback
Yeah,
on
man.
that kind of to what I said at the very beginning. Last year, Russ and I, we noted, right? It felt like a shift, not just within our camp, but other people noted. Where does it feel like where you are, in addition to Brian's question?
Well, and so, yeah, I think it is kind of a well-oiled machine, Brian. I'll talk to that one first. We're as good as our volunteers. And, I deal with, drunks and alcoholics and addicts in recovery. So sometimes you give a drunk an inch and they want to take a mile and they've got a staff bracelet on and they're working and they think they can go to the pit and take pictures with their iPhone. And then I get a call from the festival. It's like, one of your volunteers, I don't want that. Don't need that. Don't want to have that because they will lose my phone number in a heartbeat, and 22 years of goodwill can be flushed down the toilet with somebody who thinks they have an extra advantage. So really work closely with the people that put their volunteers. I give them the autonomy to take your people in Austin and get your team together for Austin city limits. Take your people in the city that you live in, and then if you want me to get on a Zoom call, go over Harmonium, the name of our foundation, and talk about our mission and how we have grown and what we do. I'll do that. So really are as good as the volunteers, and really fortunate and blessed, in that respect to be able to grow and hand these off, because from a control freak standpoint, it's, I'd like to go to every festival, but I have a full-time job and kids in college and a lot of other stuff going on. The, the shift that we're seeing, I mean, there's like a shift to like, I'm California sober, right? So it's like, could I hang out with you guys? It's like, we don't qualm, squash. We don't talk, it's like, it's your call, where you are, we meet you where you are. If you've eaten a gummy in the campground and that's your, microdose for the day and it makes everything sunnier for you and you don't drink anymore, we're fine with that. You're happy to hang out and talk as long as you want to hang out and talk. But when we're inside here, this is a safe place, no chemicals, no alcohol, because other people are coming in here that are completely abstinent. So I think some of that shift is sort of like see people getting into like more, and they're not, and I've had this conversation with people that are volunteering that are a little scared going to their first festival ever and volunteering with us. And I just will be there on a Friday afternoon looking around going, I can't even see anybody with a beer can in their hand. It's not like they're at the flaunting, they're using, because nobody wants to stand out and look like a sore thumb or, a bad apple in the middle of the field. But the more people are trying to stay hydrated and care for themselves. And I think that self-care is really just generating, within our, culture anyway these days, and mental health. That side of things is sort of, we don't dabble in it. That's not our field. We're not professionals, but there will be people that'll come by and, I'm a veteran. I have PTSD. We just saw Tool and all the lights and the booms and the bangs and the lights sort of triggered some stuff. Come and hang out for a few minutes. Yeah. You drink beer, but we're a safe place. I don't know. Bonnaroo has like certified dark tents. I've seen that out there now to get people back rooted and grounded again if they're getting too elevated. So there is a shift to wellness, and I think it's just nice to see that. But it's hard to really find people that are just stumbling anyway. There are pockets of it. You can see them passed out, alone and abandoned, but it's rare.
Well, you kind of went down a couple things I had on my list here. California sober, of course, is I think Billy Strings has made it the most popular terminology these days. That's one thing. But I wanted to start when you were talking about your volunteers, and you're only as good as your volunteers, and the people that you allow inside of your organization and what you allow them to do once the festival has started is a whole nother thing outside of what's going on on a Zoom call, in the off season. Dealing with drug addicts is very, very difficult, and especially new addicts that are working to get away from that, and depending on how their willpower and just their life variables are, it can go from not too hard to one of the hardest things that somebody could ever possibly go through. And drug addicts and alcoholics are liars. They don't mean to be sometimes. They've been conditioned to, because shame comes in that. Sometimes they're lying for no reason. And so I wonder what kind of trouble you run into with staffing while you're on site, while you're in the off season, or anything involving organization, where you have somebody. And one more caveat is that when you're starting to get sober, you start to get dopamine you never had from other places, and you get high on life almost, to keep it that simplistically. You get high on an idea. You get high on a concept. The reality of it, we'll see. And to get overzealous and to be over the top excited about something, do you find people who can't handle it, that don't actually follow I don't know if you have a stack of rules, a manual here, check them off, make sure. I think you understand where my question's coming from. Sorry, I'm meandering. Do you have issues with that? I would guess surely at some point you at least have a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, in some instances, it's not even like they're going rogue and doing something they shouldn't be doing. In some cases, it's really just overwhelmed. They've come into an environment where they're newly sober.
Bit off more than they can chew, and maybe to put it in a dumb cliche.
I mean, you get it. I mean, you're around 70,000 people, and you're within a perimeter of fencing that's now where you are, and it's like, it can be a little overwhelming, if you haven't done it before. So that I've seen people not come back, the second day, and that puts me down as staff member, which is fine. It's we don't ever suffer. We do perfectly well with the units. Other people pick up the slack, but there, that example of somebody in the pit with a camera phone that's an exact example of a situation that has happened. It happened at Lock-In, and it wasn't cool. And just a new group of promoters that we were working with, Peter Shapiro and his group, and it's just like, I don't need to have them upset with us, because if they do something more, we'd like to have good rapport with them, and we'd like to get a good referral from them. So those things happen, and people will say, "Oh, I want to go up in the towers on the side of the stage for Red Hot Chili Peppers."
Yeah,
good luck.
So does everybody, dude.
It's not going to happen. You're going to wind up you're going to wind up drunk. That's what you're going to wind up. Because you are not being part of a unit. You're being part of one. You're serving yourself instead of here with the rest of us to serve the community that came to the festival. And it is a dynamic shift that happens within people's journey, that there is a greater purpose. I buy tickets to a concert. It's not so I can get wasted. I bought a ticket to see a band, and I go to see the music. And that was a novel idea when I'd spent, a better part of a decade or so seeing Grateful Dead concerts, and I didn't make it into a couple of them. Just was in the parking lot, too drunk to get inside. Or I was in my tent at Deer Creek and could not get out the next day because I was so hungover. So those things happen to us when we get into recovery. We gotta, find the people that are generally wanting to help and serve. And that's kind of when I talk to them, you're here to serve first, second, and third And then the fourth is you get to see great music all weekend.
Yeah, and then enjoy yourself. Yeah.
So, along those lines, Patrick, and thank you again for doing this, but I'm hearing a lot of things, right? So, your organization, you have volunteers who I'm guessing are who have had an issue with drugs or alcohol, right? So they now want to work with you. They some of them, as you just said, think this is a way to get a ticket to see some music, and I'm gonna guess they're probably sincere. They want to also help, right? So you're dealing with that group. You're also, if I understand correctly, you've got maybe the curious, the person who walks by, who thinks they're has that first thought, I have a problem with drugs or alcohol. Oh, look, there's an organization. And I'm guessing there's a lot of the, oh, you mean there's somebody else that has this same problem? I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. To the person who has just maybe become sober, who needs a group, right? And needs
It's a lot of different categories of people.
There's a bunch going on. That's what I'm hearing. There's a lot going on. It's information. That was sort of my reference earlier about mission. I'm guessing your information, your support, your everything, right? You're trying
Education.
to be anyway. Education. That's a lot, man. That's a lot to take on.
And just at Bonnaroo, I mean, we've got that large camp Soberoo out in group camping. So it's managing, getting the cars in on Wednesday and Thursday to get to us because they give them the yellow hang tags. And so we're coordinating with like the people that are doing the campgrounds. These are the people that bought Camp Soberoo campground passes. And so they've got the yellow hang tag. They got to get to us and we're working with them. They're calling. That's like Wednesday's mission, get them in there. And then on Wednesday, we're also setting up the general public facing space in Planet Roo and the 40 by 40 behind the fence space where we'll have those 4 meetings during the day and making sure periodically that nobody's going back there and, doing what people do when they find a little nook at Bonnaroo that's like quiet and private, and so, managing as much as we can, all of that, and then not having a golf cart, walking, boop, 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 boop. It's a lot of moving parts. We're really trying to serve. That's, I think, the most thing is the education comes naturally just from interacting with public, but then the service to those that know we're there, that come back because we're there or found us or were told that we were there and are looking for us. So it's that they get a place to hang out with other like-minded individuals before they go off to see their schedule of shows they want to see. And then when we host the meetings, 100 of us under a tent at midnight with all the Christmas decorations and lights and tapestries, and it's a pretty awesome thing when that happens.
Just a question, not so much about Soberoo, but your just thoughts on the trend, as Barry kind of talked to earlier on, is very much, especially with the youth, drinking less is a thing. For what reasons, we could go on and on about right. Why, but that's the stats, the numbers, they right. show that. But what I never hear is, especially in the world of designer cannabis and the fascinating world of that agricultural science, I never see a headline of people are doing drugs less. I don't see that as much, especially in a country that pumps pharmaceuticals out like it's nothing, which is also another conversation for another day. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, the drinking thing is easier to notice sometimes because it's so accepted and it's such a part of American and world culture, really. Your thoughts to that, because you are a drinking and drug combo kind of awareness group, and I've never had a drug problem. I still don't believe I have it. I do feel like I can speak to most addiction issues. I've never had a drug problem. I've had a drink myself away daily problem most of my life. To me, they're not the same thing. To many, they are. Would you just speak to some of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the camp that, addiction's addiction, whether it's alcohol addiction, gambling addiction. I'm supplementing something inside of me that just makes me, I'm using it because it makes me feel good. And if it makes me feel good with one, then two will make me feel better. And then I just can't stop that marching drum once it starts to beat.
Sure.
So that sort of like, I don't, really get into it. If whatever it is, if you come to us because you have a gambling problem at Bonnaroo, I'll talk to you all day long about addiction. I just have a fun time chatting about it. But I don't work in the field. It's not. I don't know the numbers. Necessarily of like, I've read the stories about alcohol consumption among Gen Zs. It's just way down. Which is fascinating to me. I'm like that would seem like something fake IDs and getting drinks at the bar would be like the natural if I was 18 again, but it's not.
No, it's not.
Designer drugs are like, I think in a lot of cases, these music festivals are just test kitchens for guerrilla chemists that have put together some weird concoction to say, hey, try this out. If you like this, I've got a big supply. You can take it back to your college campus or to your, boarding school, and you can supply all your friends.
It's a great
And
point.
I'm just like, you don't even, there are so many people that will do that. I would have done that, when I was younger. I didn't care. I didn't ask any
Hell
questions.
yeah.
That just
Hell
like,
yeah, I
oh,
would have
put
done
it,
that.
try and
There,
put it
there,
in me, and I just don't. We'll see how it
We'll
works.
just guinea pig all these idiots out here in this field, man. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
there's our
Generally with
pullout.
generally with no harm intended. I mean,
yeah.
most people, the old, hey kid in the dark alley, try these drugs, it might ruin your life. He doesn't really want to ruin your life. He wants you to do this and continue coming. The perception's always been off a little bit.
Going back to the sort of beginning, I want to ask you both, and it's an obvious question, but I want to hear you answer it. How is seeing the Grateful Dead, Fish, Panic different sober for both of you?
This
Is
is a
that
great
the
question.
thing?
This is a great question. I have an answer for it, Patrick. I want you to go first.
Yeah, well, the simple and the answer that everybody gives. I remember the music. The next day, I remember what happened. I remember the set list. I remember who I sat with, and I remember most of the events. But um, it gets me high. Music has always gotten me high. My first concert that I bought a ticket for when I was in high school was like Prince, and it wasn't 1999. It was Controversy. It was like 1981. And I was just love going to see live music and just couldn't get enough of it. And then I thought it was enhanced by my drinking and my using, and then I lost my way through that addiction. And then I've gotten off and I'm on the other side. And I'm like, I love the environment around live music, getting in past the ticket takers and the metal detectors and getting to the seats and seeing people and socializing around it. And then boom, it's just that rush of just that first note, and we're off and running, and it's an adrenaline that I don't need drugs and alcohol for, and I did not know that in active addiction because all I knew was I needed another drink.
My answer is about half of that. And when it comes specifically to the jam band community, because I am the same way to your point, Patrick, of yes, the fun, the build up, the excitement, the getting through the metal detectors, hey, we're almost there, or getting through the arch, we're almost there, and you feel it. It's just like, oh, here we go, like that's still there. That didn't have anything to do with drugs. I love the big event. But when it comes specifically to the jam band community, and when I say followed, I mentioned that, I think I said that word, widespread panic. That's not exactly accurate. But I went to a damn lot of shows. If they were between 200 miles of where I live here in Tennessee, I was there. I didn't go to, Ohio to go see Panic usually. So it
I
wasn't
saw
really
a flat-footed floozy in Chattanooga that I'll never forget.
all right. Memorial Auditorium, if I were to guess. But to me, that music, that genre, which I still love, still cherish, went and saw Sam Holt, who I won't bore everybody with who he is, but he worked with Panic, and he did a Panic cover on here locally on Friday, and loved it. But there is a certain part of it that is missing for me. That music is designed for me to be a little spaced. I can't get spaced organically to the place that music usually goes. The stripped down rock and because in the end, this stuff is rock and roll. It's blues based rock and roll that's been turned into a different sound into the 21st century. And there's portions of it, primarily just the jam, improvising, and the drums and the space with the Dead and these things. I get bored a lot easier than I used to. And that's not, I don't mean that in any negative way. You can fix boredom. You're bored? Fix boredom. You can do that if you want to. It has affected me a little bit. I still love Widespread Panic with all my heart. Not super excited about going to a 2.5 hour show anymore. And it primarily, I told this to a guy, a huge Panic guy on Friday. We were talking shortly. It's kind of loud. And I was like, man, I can't stand to be around drunk people. I can't stand around people be like, hey, man, let me tell you about this thing. But normally I'd be like, oh, my God, let me tell you about this thing. You know, that is difficult for me. Granted, you've got a lot under your belt, Patrick, and just amazing props to you in doing that for how long you have. I'm working on a year and, a month and a half. That's really not that long, actually. So I'm still kind of trying to work my way into that, but I'm forcing my way in. But I'd be lying if I didn't say drugs and alcohol made some of that music better. Not that the music wasn't good and it needed elevation, just the setting itself, it was enhanced a little bit. And maybe that's something I'm still trying to grow out of. I don't know. What do you think?
First of all, can I just what a great honest answer, and thank you for that. Seriously, that's a great answer.
But yeah, Patrick, what do you think? I mean, have you've been around a lot of people who've been doing this for 1 month, for 1 year, for 6 months, for 6 years. What are your experiences and your conversations with people who might be saying the same thing?
Yeah, I was a hallway dancer at Grateful Dead concert. I was never front row.
I don't
Grateful
dance
Dead
in the
concert.
hallway anymore.
Yeah, I was a hallway spinner out of it, and I loved it as well. I loved that energy, and always be like the same next show, same pocket of people, and I got to be friends with a lot of them. They're still out there. They are still out. We're just gray now, we're bald, but we're still out there spinning to concerts at shows, and I just love that energy that I got because I'm not a seat taker. I'm not a ticket, go to my seat and sit there and necessarily watch the music. I'm going to the pockets of the day, and they're in the like the one show at a time community. The hardest, heaviest dancers are in that community, and we migrate together. We'll go take over an entire section over the Portal 117. It's all the kids with the stickers on. And the next portal's the rolling alley where everybody's rolling their head off. But we're over here and we mix with them and we laugh and we're high-fiving and nobody can tell that we're not the ones that are all messed up. That to me is like been the lifesaver, because I think without it, I'd be like, part of me's dead and I can't get it back. The hope is it comes back and you get it back. It's all alive and it gets brought back. Seeing live music does it for me, but that energy around being in the moment, dancing with people and like set break, dripping wet, just woohoo, can't put a price on it, and then still sober.
Brian, Russ, I want to ask Patrick about music and the lineup and Bonnaroo in particular, but before we move into that, is there anything else that you guys...
Probably.
Yeah, it'll come back. That's fine.
Yeah.
I could do this one for a while. I mean, we've touched on the important parts of the organization. I didn't know how healthy it necessarily was, because you never know, how an organization's actually doing. I stopped by last year and talked to, wish I remember their names, I don't, for a good little while, and it was and last year's Bonnaroo was my first 100% sober Bonnaroo, and so I was doing it very differently, and it was great. Like, there was never a moment where I was like, I'm not sure about this anymore.
Along
go ahead,
those
Barry.
lines, Brian. Because I mean, that was a year ago, so you were just coming up. How is it different this year? Your anticipation, if that's the right word, your expectation going what you expected last year, or your fears, your worries, your expectation? What's different this year than last year?
Different than this year, last year, a lot. Last year was a big, it was anxiety ridden in its own. I mean, it's as we talk about a lot, Barry, the anxiety of just getting there, and it can be as stressful for anybody.
Yeah,
to just,
Patrick mentioned just getting there and getting
getting
ready
there.
parked and set it exactly.
That always is there anyway.
Right.
And so there was another layer of, okay, and then am I actually going to enjoy this? Like, is this going to be fun? I know parts of it will be. I didn't think, I wasn't so far like in gray area, don't know land. But then you got to think it's a 24-hour day. It's a well, for Russ, it's 6+ days, but for many of us, it's 4 days, and then it starts to think, oh my God, what about halfway through? What am I gonna do? I didn't know if triggered was gonna be an issue or not, and really even during my deepest drinking days, which was most of them, didn't do that a lot at Bonnaroo. I really didn't. I was pretty smart. I've been to all of them. I've learned a lot, and my addiction wasn't so strong that I couldn't say, I'm just gonna kind of put that on the back burner, because this is already a hard enough week. We've already touched on all that. So I learned real quickly into that weekend that was going to be probably a pretty good weekend. And I had some anxiety medication that I took extra of. Wasn't necessarily a great idea. So now kind of a question I had earlier, now you start weighing where's the sober really at. But this was some low-grade stuff. But outside of that, moving to this year, couldn't be more excited, because I now know more information, more experience, and I think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world. We'll touch on the schedule here in a minute. We've already spent some time on it today. That's got me a little bit more excited. I have no issues or concerns at all about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you do, I mean, you've got a fellowship of folks that are there. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's we're all in this. There's room. We used to say there's room for all of us on the lot, right? And there's room for all of us, at Bonnaroo, and we're not alone. That's also the message I think that I have to remember, is where I get lost in that exhaustion, heat, maybe malnourished, dehydrated, Friday, late in the day, and still looking up, I got 48 more hours, and then by Saturday I got my sea legs back, and I'm just like, couldn't be happier, and this is great. That just fellowship of like people that are also, I can go back to home base, whether it's at my campsite or at the tent that we offer, that, man, I'm rooted, and I'm not alone. And I sometimes can get there in my addiction with a bunch of people, but when it was me having to supply my own high, and I felt alone, and I don't ever really have to go there now in my sobrieties, which is really great.
One more thing before we get closer to wrapping this up and look at the schedule, I wanted to ask you, Patrick, that for anybody who might be in the same boat I am, and I don't know how far I am on an island or by myself, I bet it's not that far away, and there's probably plenty that would somewhat understand. You said you're not affiliated with AA or any 12-step or NA or any 12-step organization, but you do have the meetings. And you mentioned earlier, I knew there was a few of them, that there's more than a few. Well, those are, in essence, AA meetings. I'm sure you have somebody who is, I'm forgetting the terminology, but the person who would head up the meeting. Sorry, I'm not forgetting what you would exactly call that person. But the guy basically got in charge of that one meeting, whether it's 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. That's still kind of AA to me, and I have struggled since my 59th day sober, which would mean 30 days in rehab, which doesn't count because, you're there. 30 after, 29 after does count because you're living, you're on your own, you make your own decisions now. And I was going to meetings because I felt like I had to. I won't get into it, but I fell out of love with AA quickly. I just don't really like their teachings. I don't really like the way that the meetings are set up. Maybe it's purely personal and it has to do with nothing about the meeting itself. But these meetings probably are still designed around that. What would you say to people who think AA just doesn't speak to them? Now, the getting sober thing speaks to them all day long, but the AA part doesn't. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question because we are not affiliated. We don't bring any literature from their fellowship to our. We don't bring a big book or a basic text from NA. We don't read out of any of that.
This is the big book, by the way, right here.
Yeah, we're not using that. We're just a fellowship of fans that are supporting one another. But most of the people that come to the meetings are coming from Chattanooga, Atlanta, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, places north, Midwest. And they're typically in a 12-step program, and we're not.
And it works really well for them. Sorry, it works very well for them. But go ahead.
Yeah, because we have multiple installations. We've got just the public-facing installation in Planet Rue. That's people that are just want to sit down and fellowship with us. They're not drinking for their own reasons. They're not using for their own reasons. They can come in and relax in our space and just enjoy some other like-minded, clean-headed people. If they want to come to the meetings at the meeting space, a lot of them are going to share like they would share in their home group back in Chicago, and they're just down at Bonnaroo, but they want to go to a meeting and then they want to talk to their home group members or their sponsor and say, you'll never believe I went to a meeting in the middle of Bonnaroo. So at the meetings, it has the feel of it, but we don't bring 12-step literature. I'm not bringing a big book. I'm not bringing a basic text from Narcotics Anonymous. I'm not bringing any pamphlets to hand out to promote that. It will feel and sound like a regular meeting because people are going to share like they do in their home group, and that's how we do it in the meeting tent.
And you can certainly utilize your services from advice, conversation, pamphlets, literature, all that, and not have a single thing to do with a meeting and be nowhere near a meeting itself. So that's kind of almost its own, I don't want to say completely separate, but so there's a little bit of everything for everybody. I realized when I was there before, but I was just curious about that AA and Soberu connection.
Yeah, and we usually don't ever
non-connection. I should say.
Yeah, when we close with like a typical like a prayer, if it were to close with a prayer and somebody does like the Serenity prayer, we usually do a dude. Grant me the serenity instead of a God. We don't ever bring in like a Our Father or anything like that.
Don't even get me started on the Serenity prayer.
We're not doing any of that stuff. So it's very, very rare that we have any conversations about,
All right, Patrick, we're going to ask you about we're going to get your picks here in a little bit. But so if somebody is going to Bonnaroo or any other festival, you guys are, I assume you're usually front and center. You're easy to find, right? There's a tent. Is it what? I mean, at Bonnaroo, it's Soberu. What nomenclature do you use when you're at other festivals?
Typically sober something. So at Sober, at Chicago, because it's in the Grant Park, we just call it Sober Park. At Lollapalooza, at Bourbon and Beyond, we just call it Sober and Beyond. So pretty much, we're just taking the end of that festival's name. The only thing with Lollapalooza is they wouldn't let us use All-Palooza, which I was like, that's unnatural. Why would we not be Sober Palooza? But they're like, no,
Perry Farrell, man.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Perry Farrell's got this thing on lockdown. But really, and also too, Patrick, it's the yellow balloons. That's kind of like the big thing, right? That people look for if you see. Not the big, massive ones that hang in the sky at Bonnaroo, but if you see the yellow balloons, you're on the right track.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And is there a website, or do you do that year-round? Like if somebody, how else can they find you not at a festival?
Yeah, so we have, the foundation has a website where people can volunteer. They can learn more about what we do. It's Harmonium, INC, Harmonium Inc. .org, and then really the social media is where we interact on Facebook for the most part. I'd like to get somebody else to kind of take over some social media stuff, some Twitter, but for the most part at Bonnaroo, Camp Soberu, is our most active Facebook page, and that is where people can start to kind of communicate on their parking and camping arrangements with us in advance. What do they need to buy? What do they need to bring? What's it going to look and sound and feel like? So we use social media more than anything else during the festival. There's a festival going on in Miami right now, Tortuga Festival. I got a group down there. They're sending me pictures. I'm putting them up on the Sober Tortuga Facebook page. So just try to manage that stuff a little bit.
All right. Do you actually get to see any music?
Yeah. I pick and choose. I'm old, and I have to walk like everyone else. So it's like
we all deal with that.
Preaching
We're all-
to the
yeah.
converted there. Who are you looking forward to at Bonnaroo this year?
I'm just going to go right off the bat. The very first act at Bonnaroo on Thursday on the stages is Eggy, and they are a pretty heady little headband. It's a jam band that's starting to just launch right now. So I'll probably be there. That tent is the more closer one for where we're located, but I'll walk across the field to the other stages and see stuff. So, on that Thursday lineup, big fan, looking forward to seeing them on Thursday.
How many shows will you get to see?
I tell people all the time, it's the best part about a festival is you get to see them all. Because if you walk through it, it's like the noise engineers got to have like all this spatial set up. But I get drawn into something. I don't even know who it is. I got to pull out my phone and try to figure out who's on this app. Who am I seeing? So it's randomly usually introduced to somebody. I'm like mind blown. And then, I wouldn't know some of the names on here, but I look forward to kind of like maybe sticking my toe in on occasion. And then when I'm not resting at our booth, catching my nutrition, going back out and seeing what's happening in the field. And I'll see, 5 good sets a day. But I'd like to see them all.
That's a good number in my book.
Yeah.
It's a real good number.
That's a real good.
What about Friday and just through the weekend? Some other highlights for you that are sticking out.
Who you looking forward to hallway dancing to? That's what I want to know.
I can hallway dance to Kurungbin like all day long.
That's a good
That
one.
is like, man, if I don't on the lineup, I'm like, I gotta figure out how to get to that show, that festival. Really like those guys. Excited to get there. The Which stage is easier for us to get to than the bigger field. But getting over there to see them will be no problem. I'm a big Which stage guy. Pretty much anything on that stage is I like the stage. I like the sound, like the audio there.
It's gotten it's gotten real good these days. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the line of sight's good too. From whatever angle I've approached it, I can really kind of see it here. Well, so big Gary Clark Jr. guy, love him, guitar player. Just,
Good,
he's there.
Good rock and roll.
Maggie Rogers is killer. I'm excited to see them. And then over on that tent, the 9 o'clock Joe Russo, J-Rad.
I was just about to say, J-Rad's got to be on your list, right?
Yeah, as far as like interpreters of Grateful Dead music, might not get much better than that one. Yeah.
And then Saturday, what are you looking at?
I'm a Kentucky guy. Caves the Elephant from Bowling Green. They've been around forever, and I'll go pop in to see those guys for like
8:30 on the What stage. Get ready, everybody. That's going to be great.
Yeah. The girl that's in White Fang, I'm trying to remember her
We've
name.
talked about her, yeah.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. So I listen to Sirius XMU a lot, and not to plug anything, but I get a lot of that kind of alternative music in my head, and I'm like looking forward to see lineup releases to see who I listen to on that. Would like to see them. Cigarettes After Sex, kind of the same. Brittany Howard, big fan. She'll destroy the Which stage when she's up there. It's relative to the lineup.
It's a strong Which stage afternoon for sure.
Yeah. Pretty Lights late night. If I could make it till 2, that would be nothing short of amazing. But I don't know.
You'll be on your own there. I won't be there, bro.
I've got a great Melanie Martinez shirt with a little baby. I rarely worn it because the little baby's flipping the bird. It's the most funny shirt. And I just might go see her to see what she sounds like because I've got her shirt and I've never seen her live.
And then wrap it up with Sunday.
I will go and see the Beaches. We'll see the Beaches.
I was going to say, we're going together, Patrick.
Okay, let's make it
We are
happen,
going to the Beaches together. I'm in love.
Yeah, I'm all about that. And if I'm still on site, because I may be leaving early, I may do a Meg and Jason Isbell before I just get on the road and try to get home before midnight. depending on timing and weather, etc. So I got stuck at year 3 at Bonnaroo after Panic. And like it was so. I mean, we got stuck in a swamp trying to get out of the campground, and I worked my way out. My buddy's stuck. I had to get tow trucked out. I was in Louisville before he even left the farm. Don't know what the weather's going to be like, but let's see what it is. And if you're going to see the beaches, I am all over it with you.
Yeah, and that's early too, so we don't have to deal with any of that later. I love the Jason Isbell. That's my closing show for the weekend. But yeah, man, so
Nice.
cool having you on, and thank you so much for being very responsive and patient with our juggling of all this. But this has been a good time.
Thank you for giving up a Sunday morning, and very, very informative, and I think really an important topic. And this was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate all you all do, and I appreciate your all's podcast. I listen to them, and I like to keep staying in the know with all things Bonnaroo. You do a great job too.
We'll be talking, Patrick. Thanks a lot.
All right, so there you go, guys. That's I don't know that we've ever done any shows this long before, have we, Russ?
Well, I don't know how long it's going to be yet. I haven't edited yet.
It's long.
It's long.
It's going to be long. It's going to be up there for sure.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It was good.
And
I
Break
enjoyed
down.
every bit
We'll put
of
all
it.
the timestamps in the description, so you know.
And appreciate
break
you
it up.
guys sticking with it, because it was a lot of interesting information for me, and I think for others as well, and an important conversation to have, to just understand a little bit better, and to know that this lifestyle exists, and it not only exists, it thrives. And I mean the sober lifestyle at music festivals and concerts. And I was 40 plus years into my life and didn't understand that. Right? Like, so it seems simple to many. I mean, it is wild. You know, I anyway will talk to people, and it's foreign to think, well, yeah, of course, yeah, we'll go to that show sober. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And so the more it's out there, the more to understand it, I think is good for everybody.
I think that, and I think we've done this show since 2018, and the more we do it, the more I realize how important this festival is to not just me, but a lot of people. And
It's fascinatingly
unbelievable,
great,
right?
You know? It's just so great for, and it's for so many different reasons.
Exactly.
From the simplest thing of, I met my wife there. I mean, we've heard that countless times. To friendships, to organizations, to whatever it might be. It
helped me find out who I am. I mean, it goes that deep for some people.
It's an important place, and it's an important thing, and it's
Very cool.
This is certainly a very thick and heavy layer to the importance of a lot of the different avenues of Bonnaroo that a lot of people don't know anything about.
Exactly. All right. What else? Like, share, and all that stuff. Thank you, Consequence. And see you guys later.
Consequence Podcast Network.